I guess you love movies. I do too. Hi guys, and welcome back to another video on my channel. And before we get into anything, I'm sorry for the attire. It's like 28, nearly 30 degrees in the UK right now. I'm absolutely sweltering, so sorry for the vest. But if you take anything from this video, if you don't enjoy art house movies, if you don't enjoy the overall content of the video, at least you got some eye candy for this video. I'm joking. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. But anyway, jokes aside, we're getting into another old segment on the channel today, and that's my favourite movie section. In the past, I've spoken about many movies, including Akira Kurosawa's Ikaru, Taxi Driver, 2001, The Godfather, many films. But funnily enough, on this segment, I never got around to talking about my favourite movie of all time. And it may have changed since I made those videos, to be fair. But my favourite movie of all time, I rewatched and watched on the big screen for the first time on the 19th of July at the Prince Charles Cinema in London. And if you live in the UK and you're close to London, you've never been to the Prince Charles Theatre, I would urge you to go. They show great movies all the time. And on the 19th of July, I saw Mirror by Andrei Tarkovsky on the big screen for the first time. And if you hadn't already guessed, Mirror is my favourite movie of all time. I actually have Mirror tattooed on the inside of my bicep, reflected, the lettering reflected underneath. That's how much this movie means to me. It's a very difficult movie to describe to people. It's a movie when you say, your favourite movie is this weird Russian movie called Mirror, what's it about? And then you sort of describe it and they're like, what the fuck is that? I'm a massive fan of Andrei Tarkovsky in general. I have a lot of his movies. Obviously here I have Mirror, of course, Andrei Rublev, and Stalker on Criterion. I also have Solaris on Criterion. These movies are brilliant. He's one of my favourite directors of all time. Actually, I haven't spoken about him a lot on this channel. I've spoken about Blu-ray pickups of his, but not really in detail about why I love him as a director, and that might be because he's incredibly unique. He's really in a group of one, but I always talk about him alongside two other directors who I consider to be his equal, and that would be Kubrick and Scorsese. And I always talk about them in kind of a religious context. I describe them as the Holy Trinity, Kubrick being the Father, Scorsese being the Son, and Tarkovsky being the Holy Spirit. And I think the Holy Spirit is a perfect way to describe Tarkovsky as a director, because he finds a way to transcend normal storytelling. He goes to a place that very few directors can go, this sort of abstract spiritual space that is almost subconscious, non-literal. It penetrates you in a way that very few directors can achieve, and maybe Malick can do it occasionally, but never to this level. I adore Malick. I think he's a phenomenal director, but Tarkovsky is the king of this. I always call him the master of the ethereal. He manages to reach a plane in his movies that feel like you're in a different, like, time and place. It's like a whole different universe that you're in. You don't quite feel like you're on Earth. It's bizarre. It's like a soulscape, or like some sort of heaven or hell. It's incredibly spiritual. The experience watching his movies, I'm not religious in the slightest, but it's incredibly moving, and he reaches this plane in many of his movies, in Stalker, in Andrei Rublev, but he never sits there as long as he does in Mirror. He finds a way to exist within this sort of non-literal, narrativeless space more than in any other film he's ever made. It's his most abstract and difficult film to kind of understand, because really the movie, in a sense, isn't really about much at all. There's very little story to it. The basic premise is that a man in his 40s is dying of cancer, and as he does so, he looks back on his life, his childhood, the nostalgia that brings, his regrets, and the feeling that his life maybe hasn't turned out the way he wanted it to. The feeling that his life has actually reflected his parents' life in a lot of ways, and that's why we have the same actress playing his wife as plays his mother for long periods of this movie. And he always talks about how in memories of his mother. He never sees his mother, he sees her. This sort of bizarre reflection of his past is mirrored through the whole movie, hence the name Mirror. There are sequences that feel dreamlike, that feel like they make no sense in context with everything around it, but the movie itself is not about like normal narrative structure. It's about creating pure emotional moments. Allow the movie to wash over you in a way where you don't think about what's literally happening, because if you start to try and dissect the movie as you would any other type of movie, the movie falls apart because it doesn't make sense. Because a stream of consciousness, a dream, the way your brain works when subconscious is not logical. It doesn't make any sense, which is why this movie is so masterful to me, because any movie that tries to create dreamscape fails, because in reality nobody can do that. You can't construct how our minds work in a dream and make it into a film, because it would be incomprehensible nonsense. But the closest that anyone has ever come to doing this and creating something that is genuinely astounding is Tarkovsky in Mirror, because it is an unstructured journey into this man's subconscious mind, into his soul. And there are moments in this film that touch me emotionally like very few movies ever. The last 30 minutes of Mirror is haunting. The way he uses sound design, and especially the way he uses wind in this film, genuinely gives me chills just thinking about it. The performance also from his mother/wife in the movie is extraordinary. I rehearsed her name before this review, but I cannot remember it offhand. I'm going to put her name on screen because she is extraordinary, and she gives genuinely one of the best performances I've ever seen in my entire life. She's unbelievable, and she goes through so many emotions through the movie because it's so unstructured and fractured, but she's astonishing. The final 30 minutes where, there'll be some mild spoilers here, but she talks to his father about having a child, and he asks her whether he wants a boy or a girl, and at the same time he also sees himself and his brother and his mother, but now seen as an old woman playing in the grass around the house that he used to live. And this moment where he dies and is conceived simultaneously is so heartbreaking and beautiful. It genuinely almost brings me to tears just talking about it. It's astonishing. There's a moment where one of the greatest pans or like pull shots of all time is the final shot of the movie, and there's the audio just drops out at a point. It's beyond description. The movie goes to places where it makes me feel things that I've never felt in a movie before. It makes you question your own mortality, your own life. It makes you think about the moments that made you who you are, the moments that in your final moments you'll want to live in forever. It's profound, beautiful, abstract, and unlike anything that's ever been made. It's a transcendent masterwork, the best of a master's foray of masterpieces. His oeuvre is incredible, but Mirror, for me, is the shining jewel and the greatest achievement of his career. And what is most bizarre and strange and sad is that Tarkovsky died in his 50s of cancer, about 10 years after he made Mirror. A bizarre self-prophesization of his own death. And as the wind flows through this movie, maybe it's our main character, maybe it's his father, maybe it's Tarkovsky himself. And few movies make you feel this way. It's cinema without boundaries. It's the greatest movie of all time, in my humble opinion. So there you go. That is my favourite movies video for Tarkovsky's Mirror. a cinematic monument. If you have not seen it, and if you love Tarkovsky, go check it out. If you've not watched any Tarkovsky and you're not an arse house guy, not gonna lie, probably gonna hate it. But for me, it's untouchable at the top of the mountain of the greatest movie of all time. So there you go. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more My Favourite Movies videos, let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video overall, please subscribe to the channel. We're 3 away from 200 subs. I know it sounds little, but it would mean a lot to me to get to that little milestone. And yeah, thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Goodbye.